If you need immediate help, please call the National Substance Abuse and Mental Health Hotline at 1-800-662-HELP.
Bottle of wine, fruit of the vine. When you gonna let me get sober? Let me go home and start over.
Welcome to Clean and Sober Radio. Brought to you in part by Jefferson University Hospitals and Thomas Jefferson University, providing excellent clinical and compassionate care in the Philadelphia region. A proven leader in healthcare and education since 1825. And now, here are your hosts, Gary Hendler and Mark Sigmund.
Hey, hi, everybody, and welcome to Clean and Sober Radio out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Clean and Sober Radio features real people with real stories about addiction to drugs and alcohol. And I just want to mention, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that empowers people and families who are dealing with drug and alcohol addiction to solve their problems and help those who cannot. We do it through direct advocacy, broadcasting, and maintaining a database of recovery centers and related information. If you do have a problem, please call 1-888-728-9941. That's direct into the studio, and we'll help you out. Right, Mark?
Yes, we will.
Mark, what is new in recovery news this week?
So remember we were talking last week about people getting high and driving? I found this very interesting. Winnipeg, this is actually out of Winnipeg, Canada, and the Winnipeg police actually did a recent traffic enforcement campaign which is called the Don't Drive High campaign, and it was from January to March. They screened 207 drivers for drugs as part of this year's Don't Drive High campaign. 97 of them tested positive for cannabis consumption. That's 47%, or nearly half the drivers who were tested, and they were using oral fluid tests.
What?
And I'm not exactly sure. It might be a litmus thing they put under your tongue.
I hope.
But it really hit me because we were talking last week about the amount of people that are smoking pot on the roads and how you smell it on the roads and all of that stuff. And it really hit me that we have the same thing going on here. And eventually it's going to catch up with, a marijuana breathalyzer or something like that.
Yeah, technology is on its way to do
Yes.
that. And this what you just said is very apropos for our subject today and our guest. And our guest today, and we are thrilled, not to death, but we're thrilled to have the new superintendent of the Lower Merion Police Department on the show. And Lower Merion, for our visitors, our listeners and viewers, Lower Merion Township is outside of Philadelphia. They call it the Main Line. And they call it the Main Line not because of the wealth in that community necessarily, but the train line that goes through there was called the Main Line. And also, Lower Merion Township parts of it are very affluent, and it is the 9th largest township in Pennsylvania. So Superintendent Andy Block is with us today, and he's got his job cut out for him, but I've already heard some really incredibly great stuff about this new boss in the police department. And he's actually came here, Mark, because you have an outstanding warrant, and you will be taken away after the show.
I think mine might have been expunged, when we both have a lot of stuff that we want to talk to Andy about.
We will do that when we come back, and we'll be right back.
This is Clean and Sober Radio.
A cancer diagnosis can knock the wind out of you. The Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center at Abington Jefferson Health can help. Our brand new Asplund Cancer Pavilion brings you 86,000 square feet of cancer-fighting science for truly comprehensive care. Backed by the strength of an NCI-designated cancer center. Call 1-800-JEFF now. The Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center at Abington Jefferson Health. The power to out-science cancer.
This is Elvin Bishop, and I listen to Clean and Sober Radio.
888-728-9941. This is Clean and Sober Radio.
Hey, you can enjoy this show in a lot of places. WWDB in Philadelphia, WPEN 97.5 FM in Philadelphia, WGAC in Augusta, Georgia, WJBR 1010 in Tampa, Florida. They're just a few of the stations that you can hear on the radio, but you can hear us anywhere in the world. Right, Mark?
Yes, you can. And you can also download our podcast. If you go to the Apple iTunes store or what have you, you can download our podcast and it'll be delivered straight to your inbox every week.
Is that how it works?
It's exactly how it works. Yes. And you can find it in all kinds of platforms at this point, all over the world, Gare.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Superintendent Andy Block, welcome to the show.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be
Welcome.
here today. Thank you.
This is like Mark and I are so into law enforcement.
we really are.
And it's a pleasure to be here. I got to tell you, that I'm a little disappointed. You just said that one of the stations is in Augusta, Georgia.
Yeah.
We should have gone there remotely with the Masters this weekend.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm not a big golfer, but I think maybe Gary is.
Oh, I am. I definitely am.
I'm kidding, but it is. It's one of the all-time favorites for me to watch the Masters. It's just beautiful down there.
That's
It is.
great. All right, Andy, thanks for coming on. Okay.
Yes.
Really, it's my pleasure. Thanks
Yeah.
for having me on.
So we are in right now, as we mentioned, we're in Lower Merion Township, which is outside of Philadelphia for our listeners and viewers who are not familiar. And you grew up around here, didn't you?
Did a lifelong resident of Lower Merion Township. I was born and raised here in Ballackinwood, and was very fortunate that I was able to stay in the township, and I live in Ardmore now.
Yeah,
So,
and like we were saying before we went on the air, I would imagine for you to come back. You've been in law enforcement for 40-some years, and to
39. I haven't hit
39.
40 yet.
Okay.
Wow, 39
39,
years.
yeah.
How is he 34 years old? Like he told us.
We have to later in the show get some stories. 39 years as a cop. You have to have seen a lot of stuff.
Seen a lot, some bad and a lot of good,
Yeah.
more good than bad.
Gary doesn't realize it, but he's hitting sound
not
effects.
on.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear it?
No, I can't hear it.
I can't hear
it.
it. Huh?
He's.
Okay. I don't know.
Oh, okay. That's
Okay.
good. That's
Anyway,
good.
So what I was saying, Andy, I would imagine now you've been in law enforcement for 39 years. You've been in a boss in a lot of these places, superintendent and everything, and now you're back to where you grew up. And I was thinking that it was like if Mark or I were baseball or football players, and we've been all over the country for professional teams, and we come back here and we're playing for the Phillies and the Eagles. Is that what it feels like?
It does, and it's come full circle for me.
Yeah.
The reason being is I was 19 years old when I became a police officer, and I was a summer police officer in Avalon, New Jersey.
Oh, that had to be fun.
It was a lot of great, great memories, great experiences there. And you knew right away, it was a calling, a vocation for me as soon as I started. And I've always wanted to be, a police officer. I started at a young age with Narberth Ambulance when I was 16. I was a volunteer there. Went to EMT school. They sponsored me. So that really started, the public safety platform, if you will, for me in my life. And we took that very seriously because at the time, Narberth Ambulance was just taking over the emergency medical services in Lower Merion. Prior to that, Lower Merion Police used to have 3 wagons, and they would do all the transports to the hospital. So they were looking at a bunch of young kids, and, failure wasn't an option for us. So we took it very seriously. So, that was really a formidable time in my life with respect to public safety. And then I became involved with the volunteer fire service in Lower Merion, which I still am. I'm a member of the Gladwin Fire Company, the former volunteer fire chief there. I took the Lower Merion police test in 1987. Back then, that's when over 1,000 people would take the examination. I just didn't score high enough, to make the list and get hired. But I had many friends that were police officers here that I knew from my experiences with the ambulance and being a member of the fire company. And they said, look, you're going to get hired somewhere someday. We know you wanted to work here, but this isn't the only police department, and you'll do well. And they were mentors for me. So I continued to take the tests. I was hired then in Plymouth Township after I left Avalon. I worked full time there and then came back home, so to speak. So I was hired by Plymouth Township. I was there for about a year and a half, and then I was hired in Radnor. And that's where I did the majority of my career. It was a tremendous career at Radnor, 28 years. And after I retired there, I ended up in Upper Moreland Township in the Willow Grove area, Montgomery County.
Right. So some of it was in Delaware County and some of it was in Montgomery County.
Right.
So you were the type of kid who knew what they really wanted to do. Is that?
Yes, I was fortunate. And again, I had mentors here that were watching out for me, that I didn't, go astray, go the wrong way with it. My father passed away when I was 10, so my mother was raising myself and my younger sister. So anything could happen, in those situations.
Sure.
But I had, good family members, and as I was growing up, I knew I wanted to get into the public safety profession and ultimately be a police officer.
Because I imagine you were friendly with some kids who went astray. I mean, and when your old friends found out that you were in law enforcement, does it change the relationship?
If they're true friends, no, it doesn't. But
Okay.
some of the other ones, yes, that they looked on you, looked down on you. They didn't want to deal with you anymore, and I went to Archbishop Carroll High School. That's where I attended high school. And at the time, the schools were separate. There was the girls' side and the boys' side. So it wasn't, co-education. And we had the Christian brothers. They were teaching at Archbishop Carroll then. And one of the brothers, Brother Joe McGinty, got me one day in the hallway when I was a sophomore. And he says, Andrew Block, he says, tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. That was a profound moment because what he was telling me, and I looked back at, I was running with the wrong crowd. So it's little things in life that, make a difference in my.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm one of the directors of the prison in Montgomery County, and you're a one bad decision away from being locked up.
Exactly.
That's scary to think about.
Not that I wasn't picked up back in the day by Lower Merion Police and maybe Haverford Police, but it was all innocent, and it was all disclosed in my backgrounds when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Was it really?
Yeah, minor stuff, throwing snowballs at cars, things like that.
Oh yeah,
So,
we did it
Yeah,
all.
we all did
We
it.
didn't do that.
Status
Well,
offenses.
and I got to ask you. Well, first thing, the back of police cars, the thing that got me was how slippery the seats were. You get in there.
In the van or the patrol
in the police in the patrol car, like they were just slippery and it felt weird. But when you were in that police car, where you're like, man, I want to be a cop. This is cool.
Oh yeah, yes. There's been so many different things that happened in my life. We were, myself and a couple other friends used to go to the Phillies games. If you remember this, back in the '70s, and they had the 50-cent seats. If you went with an adult, so one of the parents used to drive us down. We'd go all the time. And in the church at St. Matthias, that's where I went to church, they took the altar boys down on a trip. But we would go down all the time and look. Before that, it's like fourth inning, there's 3 seats behind the home plate open. Yeah, you'd walk down and do it. So it happens the night that we're on the altar boy trip of all nights, the 3 of us, we were altar boys, we're walking down and we actually get held up at knife point. Like 9 years old, at the vet. So we run down to the 200 level. This is back when, Mike Schmidt and those guys were playing. 63,000 people at the vet. You're not going to find these guys. We get the security guard, said, we just got robbed. We tell them what happened. They're like, wait here. So 2 of the guards leave. We're with another guard. 15 minutes later, the guy comes back. He says, and we said, that's the guy. They're the 2 guys that robbed us. So next thing you know, we're in court in Philadelphia. You know how that goes for like 2 years. Yeah. And one of the days we come out of the courthouse, and the father that was driving us, he had a pickup truck, and the pickup truck was stolen. We came out.
No.
You can't make this up. So call 911, Philly police show up, and I'm thrilled that the police are here. And he says, are you sure you didn't have your keys? He says, I have my keys right here for the vehicle. So, and we were down at family court at that point. The officer gets on the radio because he goes, get in the car. He says, we found the truck. It's on the front steps of the art museum. So we're going like 100 miles an hour up the parkway with the lights and siren going in the car. I'm like, this is
it.
Right? Yeah.
This is
and,
it.
And we're pulling up, and there's the pickup truck, halfway up the steps, nobody in it, and it was running. And he had a spare set of keys that he forgot he lost, and they were down in the seat of the truck.
Oh,
so
my
it's
God.
just one of the,
What was your first job, not including any kind of law enforcement? Did you have any other kind of jobs?
Yeah, I did. I went to St. Matthias School, and they hired me to help out after school with cleaning the school, doing maintenance, and then, on the weekends, setting up, helping the sexton set up for the masses and whatnot. So, that was the first job. And then, I graduated high school, started at St. Joe's, my college, and then got hired in Avalon. So, and I was volunteer with Narberth Ambulance for many years, and became chief there for a while, and it was great.
So you're the boss now in Lower Merion, and there are obstacles, I would imagine, in this township because of the wealth and the famous people who live around here. And I remember years and years ago, one of the officers I was speaking with in the 70s, he said specifically we had a conversation about Julius Erving's son, who was he was a kid. and that back then at least, you had to be a little diplomatic when you dealt with some of these people that are in your district. Now, I just want to mention I have a list of people who live in Lower Merion, which is outside of Philly. I'll say it again, Montgomery County. They call these notable people who live there now or have lived here. Hap Arnold, former World War II Air Force general. Albert Barnes, founder of the Barnes Foundation. Kobe Bryant, former professional basketball player. He went to Lower Merion High School. Taylor Buchhaus, former professional baseball player with the Colorado Rockies and the Mets. John DeBella, who worked at in this building on WMMR and WMGK. Shelley Gross, film producer. Alexander Haig, former U.S. Secretary of State. Did you know that one?
I did not.
Okay.
He went to Lower Merion High School
Yes,
as well.
he did.
He was a graduate of Lower Merion.
Patti LaBelle, the famous singer, lives in Lower Merion Township. Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles. Gary Maddox, former baseball player, Philadelphia Phillies. Let me see who. Tim McCarver, Teddy Pendergrass, the singer, old friend of mine. M. Night Shyamalan, how do you pronounce it? Shyamalan, filmmaker. Lawrence Summer, former Harvard graduate, and he was a Treasury Secretary for the United States. They all went to Lower Merion. So why I'm saying this is, and I'm asking you, Andy, is it difficult in an environment like this, where are there some not just famous people, very rich people? Does that cause a problem?
For me, no. And the reason being is at a very young age when I worked in Radnor, they sent myself and another officer out to redesign our control tactics and use of force training. And the people that were putting the training on were retired Secret Service agents. And they put a program on that we went to become instructors. It was 3 weeks long. Phenomenal training. First thing they tell us when we're going through this training, listen, you treat everybody the same way. You treat them with respect and dignity no matter what is occurring. Yeah. And he said, when you're in this job, the minute you take it personal, you're going to have problems. You know what you're involved in, you know what you've gotten into, and you got to keep it professional at all times. Right. So that's the first thing that we instilled in all our officers, and the Lower Merion officers are the same way. We're coming up, we're always treating people with the utmost, respect and professionalism. It doesn't matter who you are. You can't, if you start doing this and saying there's different people, different classes, this person's unhoused, homeless, and whatnot, you're getting into bias policing. And we don't stand for that. You can't in this day and age, and you should never have done it. But that training was the basis for where I've come through my career, that when you're dealing with situations, I don't care what you say about me. I don't care what you say about my family. I'm here as a police officer. It's professional. If we have to make an arrest, we're going to make the arrest. And we're going to explain to you what we need you to do. And let's face it, we have situations where some people, won't abide by what we're asking to do, and we have to professionally take them into custody and things that way. You really shouldn't be using any type of influences, in those situations. Everybody should be treated the same way.
Okay,
with respect and dignity.
If you're joining us now, whether you're watching us or listening, we have the Police Superintendent, Lower Merion, Andy Block, with us today, and we're going to start to talk about the street and the addiction and what kind of issues you guys deal with and what kind of problems it causes, and it's training, different kind of training that you guys must have because of what is going on now. Let's do this. First of all, if you want to call in and speak with Superintendent Block, call in at 1-888-728-9941. That's 1-888-728-9941. And this is a good opportunity if you want to talk to a real live police officer. I mean, Mark is sitting next to me. He's nervous as it is right now.
I am.
He's
I'm very.
He's nervous.
I'm stuttering.
Yeah. So, okay. Let's. Why don't we do this? If you're listening to us and you want to watch us do the show, it's very easy. Go to Facebook and go to our page, Clean and Sober Radio, and we usually get about 1,000 people during the week watching us. It's fun to watch us. It's very informative, and it's just another source to enjoy this show. And let me mention a couple people right now that are watching us. Kathy Wolf Collin is watching. from Coral Springs, Florida, and we do like when you tell us where you're from. Who do you have, Mark?
Daryl Bugman.
Oh, Daryl.
Mark, have a Coke on me. I think I'm going to do that. I mean, we got Mike Burke from Media PA. Have a
Good.
great show. And our buddy C. Ruger. Hello, everyone. Philly.
By the way, I met Mike Burke in person. I was in an event for somebody who's running for a judge in Delaware County, and he came up to me and said, "Hey, I really like your show." And I was like, "Thanks. Who are you?" And when he said Mike Burke, I said, "Thank you. You're a loyal listener."
He's a 5-year loyal listener. He's got the 5-year badge on there. So he's been tuning in for a long time, Gary.
Yeah. Who else? Because I don't have anything.
Oh, we got Mike Brill. Mike, hello. Hey guys, not much time here, but always with you on this journey. Kevin Heyer, TGIF friends, outstanding topic. Our buddy and our attorney for Clean and Sober Radio, Zachary Cooper.
He's our DUI specialist.
Yes, we don't
And-
need, thankfully, anymore.
Wait, let's
Oh,
ask
knock on
Superintendent
wood.
Block. Do you know that attorney?
I do not. I do not.
Great
know
guy.
Zachary Cooper.
Good guy.
Jason Powell. Hello, Jason. And he's a fire chief, I think. Fire chief, firefighter.
Where-
Great
where's
guy.
this?
In he's from Clayton, New Jersey, but he's in New Jersey. I don't know which
Okay.
township. Maybe you could post it there.
That's good.
Lindsay Tomlinson. We had Lindsay's brother on last week, who was phenomenal. He's just been sober for just got 2 years, and she's on here. And then James Bilber back. Hello from Ventnor.
Ventnor, New Jersey. Okay.
Yes, and that's it.
Fourth floor of the Oxford building.
You know where he
East
lives.
Front. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Nice.
He's a good guy. That's what you got?
That's what I got.
All right. I don't know why I'm not getting anything on this one.
I think they like me better today. Usually it's the opposite.
they're
Gary
great.
gets them all.
I think that most
And-
of these people have
Yeah,
warrants.
maybe.
This, no, I'll tell you, our audience is great, Andy. Most of them are either in recovery or their family members who are trying to get their people in recovery. And we try to help people get into treatment, man.
Amen. That's phenomenal. It really is. It is.
Yeah. Can we take a break now? All right, we're going to take a break now. When we get back, we're going to start to talk about the police department under Superintendent Block and all the issues that they have and how it's probably not getting any better because of the addiction in this country. We'll be right back.
This is Clean and Sober Radio.
A cancer diagnosis can knock the wind out of you. The Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center at Abington Jefferson Health can help. Our brand new Asplund Cancer Pavilion brings you 86,000 square feet of cancer-fighting science for truly comprehensive care. Backed by the strength of an NCI-designated cancer center. Call 1-800-JEFF now. The Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center at Abington Jefferson Health. The power to out-science cancer.
Hey everybody, this is former Philadelphia Flyer Chris Terrian, and you're listening to Clean and Sober Radio.
888-728-9941. This is Clean and Sober Radio.
Hey, we're back with Superintendent Andy Block from the Lower Merion Township Police Department. And the designation of superintendent means you're the boss.
Boss man.
Boss man. The boss cop. Do you know what COP stands for?
Yeah, constable on patrol.
You're probably the only person that knows
Wow,
that.
I never knew
Constable on
that.
patrol.
Next time I get pulled over, I'm going to pull that out. That
Yeah.
nice fact right there.
Wait, you said among other things?
No, there's stories about copper buttons in Boston or something.
Yeah, that too. But
Yeah,
yeah, it
yeah,
was
but
the
both
originally.
of
Yeah,
them.
you know, that Sir Robert Peel was the one that had that, and he was from Britain, and then we had August Falmer here over at Berkeley, so he was the godfather of the United States of policing while Sir Robert Peel was there. So that's where it came up with Sir Robert Peel having the constables over in Britain.
Are you okay being called? Do you mind that term?
No.
No.
What,
Again,
cop?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
sort of
no.
like
I prefer police officer.
police
Yeah.
officer.
Yeah, I mean, we've been called everything, and it's just
Yeah, that's
you know,
5-0.
some people, you're a bunch of, you're nothing but a bunch of pigs and things like
Oh,
that. And when you
gosh,
say you're
that's
right,
terrible.
it's all about pride, integrity, and guts. It's good.
That's
you know?
it
It's
says
not-
on your
Yeah, there
cars,
you
too. All right,
Right.
what's going on? What is going on? When we say Lower Merion, it can be for anywhere in this whole country. What trends have you seen, Andy, in the last 20, 30 years with the addictions?
So it's a great question. There's been a lot of trends. So when I first became a police officer, the DUIs were extremely high because there was a lot of drinking and driving going on. The laws really didn't have any ramifications on it, and MAD came about, the Mothers Against Drunk Driver, and that was Candy Lightner, and that was the beginning of the game changing, on the court level and the enforcement level, but also we started educating our kids in school as they started coming up, the DARE program, things that nature. All right, so we started changing the culture. So as they got older, they weren't doing the same things we were at our ages, when we were doing underage drinking or taking vehicles out and driving, while you're under the influence. So that was big at the time, with the DUI enforcement. And I remember when I was working as a young officer in Radnor and even in Avalon, it would not be uncommon. You'd be out on the night shift and you'd have at least 2 DUIs on the enforcement. The reason I did it was, obviously, I didn't want people getting hurt, because the flip side of it is if you weren't doing your enforcement, usually very serious, tragic, or fatal accidents occur because of that, because there were so many people that were driving that way. So fast forward 20 years later, we've done a remarkable job with the education, and the DUI by alcohol is not as prevalent as it was, which is tremendous. The other thing that's helped is the Ubers have been around, the ride sharing, so that gets people, home. The flip side of it is that we've seen, an increase with obviously the marijuana and other dangerous drugs that people are, and obviously, the opioids that were out there, that brought people, into the heroin and the fentanyl and everything else. And I tell everybody this because we used to go and talk to the schools and different community groups. People never woke up in the morning and said, today I want to become a heroin addict. It's the whole process that went on. A lot of it was through pharma and through, your insurance companies and, your medical providers. It was that triangle. And that was the thing that we had to, dismantle in government to stop this. Young kids are getting hurt. The insurance plan says, you get 30 days of oxy, next thing you know, they're addicted to it. And then next thing you know, they're graduating to heroin. So we used to see a lot of that. I can tell you that's on the downward slide, which is a good thing. There's a decline. Again, through education, and the different services are out there that we can get people into, when it happens. So I think we're in a good place. We're going to get into a better place with it, but there's been a really significant decline, with these opioids and the overdoses that we were seeing. Plus, some of the things are now that Narcan is so readily available, to individuals, people that have it at home, they use it. We may not be aware of it, and people are worried about this because of the stigmatism. I always tell them, don't worry about the stigmatism. Worry about saving a person's life, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, that was a big issue when the Narcan started to be distributed to all the police departments across Pennsylvania. There was some pushback, obviously, but I think now it's almost 100% everybody is buying into it. The other program is the LEDI program, which was started by Josh Shapiro in the Attorney General's office, and that's a law enforcement treatment initiative, which trains the police officers to, instead of locking somebody, give them the opportunity to get into treatment. Now, of course, when it's appropriate, it's not when you're dealing heroin, but that's another program that is, people are starting to understand we can't incarcerate out of this mess.
Correct, and that's what was happening with it. We think, okay, it's just a situation where we incarcerate them and that'll take care of the problem. It doesn't. It amplifies the problem.
Right. Okay. It certainly does. We actually have a caller on the line. And we're going to get to him in a second.
Get to him.
Right?
Yes.
All right. Jason Powell, welcome to Clean and Sober Radio.
Hey, Jason.
Hi, guys. How are you? Hey,
Good.
What's up, Mark? How are you?
Good.
How are you?
Great to hear from you over here.
Yeah, man. I've been doing well. I met Mark a couple years ago. I was having an issue with pain medicine. I had back surgery. And one thing led to another. I wasn't real deep into it. I was just taking it. I said it as taking it. I wasn't taking it to get high. I was just taking it to get by because my body said, hey, you need this. And then I spoke with Mark. He got me hooked up with a great doctor in the Northeast. Like I said, I live in New Jersey, so I would drive out to the Northeast. I still see him every 6 months. I'm on Suboxone.
Good.
I'm a captain in the Winslow Township Fire Department. I
Thank you
got
for your
promoted 2
service.
years ago. Yes, thank you. And I just wanted to call in. I try to tune in to you guys every week, but with my schedule, it's kind of tough sometimes. So,
Do you want to ask Superintendent Block anything? Andy Block?
Chief, I wasn't sure if it's on your side too, but there for a while, a couple years ago, we were getting hit for overdoses all the time. We had 46 deaths on my shift in 1 year. I don't know if they were dealing bad heroin back then or what, but now it doesn't seem like we're going out to that much. Is it the same over there for you guys?
Yes, it is for a number of different reasons. Because we've in the Philadelphia now, there's a very proactive mayor, Cheryl Parker. So she has partnered with law enforcement and public safety, to make the difference, because that's where most of our overdoses were occurring as a result of people going in there. And again, and I'm glad you're doing so well. And you, or what I was speaking about earlier, you went and had back surgery. Never did you ever intend, to become addicted to, opioids or painkillers. And I've had back surgery as well. And I was acutely aware of what the industry does. And they told me, when you come out, you're going to be on a morphine drip. I said, I'm not going to be on any of that. If I have a problem, I'll let you know. But to answer your question, we've seen a dramatic decrease in it as well. And I think, again, it's because of the education. The trends are changing in Philadelphia. But as you stated, when in the height of it, we were averaging usually 1 or 2 overdoses, maybe 3 a day. And then when there were bad batches that were, the mixtures were bad between the heroin and laced with the fentanyl, we could see right away, because everybody was experiencing it in the region, that we knew that there was tainted heroin that was out there because people were dying from it. And just, it's sad.
Yep.
We want to throw a lifeline to the people, and Letty's one of them, is to get them into the treatment programs and things of that nature. But people also need to be educated. And I go back to our experiences. We went through major surgery. Back surgery is nothing that's minor. I'm educated,
Exactly.
and I'm like, I'm not going through any of this. You can give me a non-narcotic for pain relief, which they did, but I wanted nothing to do with it, just because you're educated and you're concerned. You're concerned.
I think a lot of us think it'll never happen to us.
Right.
Never happen to us, but it
I
every day, right, Jason?
I didn't think in the least bit I would ever be addicted, but I do have 2 parents that are addicted to painkillers, and that's how it was so easy for me to get them. And to this point, they're still on it because the doctor says, hey, they need it for pain management, which, okay, but that's, I'm only a voice in their ear when it comes to that stuff. I can't make anybody do anything. So
Right, we can't, can we? Just as long as you have to protect yourself. It's a selfish program. You know that?
Exactly. And my wife is very strict. When she found out, she didn't even know I was taking them, and when she found out, she was like, "You will never take another one ever again." And she gave me what I needed to get me through work the next day. That weekend, I did not touch another. It was the worst. It was the worst in the world.
Yeah.
So
it's cunning, baffling, and powerful, right?
Nah, great for you.
Yeah,
I'm so glad to hear the success that you have.
I was so glad to see, too, with the family situation, Jason. And now, do you have 2 kids now or 1?
I have 2. I have a 1.5-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Oh, it's wonderful. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
And
Appreciate your time.
Listen, and now your kids can always feel proud of their father being a father.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I thank Mark for that. Mark
Yeah.
Mark was a big help when I was down in the dumps.
Yeah,
Thanks, Jason.
That's great.
He
That's
is
great to hear.
Such great working with you.
Jason, thanks for the call, buddy.
Thanks.
It's a pleasure
Yeah.
to meet you.
You guys
Good
have
luck.
a great weekend.
You
too.
Stay well.
Bye-bye.
That's what
Bye-bye.
it's all about, right? That's what it's all about. Tim C. from Sarasota, Florida, wrote to us this week. I heard that fentanyl is being replaced with Trank or Xyzline. What is it? Will this ever end? Okay.
So the xylazine, you're seeing more and more of it, which I'm actually a little bit, believe it or not, happy about, because I'm hoping, and you're starting to see less of the fentanyl, so probably less overdoses, right? But xylazine is a totally different kind of class, whereas, fentanyl is an opioid. Xylazine is more of like a sedative, almost like a benzo. And the thing about xylazine is it's a whole nother set of withdrawal. And so you're getting these people that go into rehab and they're going into opioid withdrawal. And xylazine a lot of times hits a little bit later than the opioid. So it could be like day 3, they're starting to get the xylazine withdrawal.
Narcan does not work.
It does not work, but you don't see the level of, overdoses from xylazine itself.
I'll tell you what you do see. You see the physical damage when you see the skin coming off and the muscles.
It's awful.
It's just awful. And then we didn't discover, Mark and I have been talking about, there's another drug out now that is 20 to 50 times more powerful than Trank.
Metomidine.
Metomidine. Yeah. So the last thing Tim said, will this ever end? I don't think in the near future at all.
Yeah, I don't think in the near future, but we got to have some hope. What do you think?
We always have to have hope. And I think it's being proactive with our education.
Yeah.
It's being proactive with our centers to help people out and you got to stay the course with them. And it's tough love sometimes. You can't give up on people. Mark, you just had a success story here. You have to do that. And that's what I look at. Arrest isn't always the way to do it. Sometimes it holds people maybe in abeyance with it, but they need help. They need treatment. And again, like I said, they didn't wake up that morning and say, I'm going to become addicted to pain medication or opioids. It's a whole process.
And
and we're responsible for it as a society in whole. We are.
We have to be able to provide the resources for people, either willing or non-willing, to get into treatment. Because look, when I went into treatment 42 years ago, believe it or not, if I didn't have access to a treatment center, who knows what would have happened.
Yeah, and I got to tell you too, it's like when you arrest somebody for DUI and things like that. I've had so many times on the other end of it where that was that person's moment of clarity.
Yes.
Where that was, then maybe they're on probation and some people, the only way they stop is from having that kind of oversight. So it's really a lot of teamwork, because, you need a bottom, unfortunately. And I've had that happen a lot.
You're exactly right.
You do need a bottom, but, also, as you've said this before, the bottom can be a lot of different places. Out here on the main line, in the affluent areas, the bottom could be, my BMW got a flat tire. I'm saying facetiously. But, the bottom, there's always another bottom under that bottom if you don't take care of it.
Yeah, they say every bottom has a trap door, if you don't take care of it. But
what was your bottom?
Oh, gosh, that's a long story. Definitely, having to sneak around. Definitely just relationships being affected. I hit a pretty high bottom as compared to, other people. But for me, it was the obsession to use and just being stuck, in other words, having to use to do anything, go to the movies, go fishing, having to use,
and never thinking that you could not either have fun or live a productive life clean. That was not on the table.
I thought my life was over when I first got clean. I was like, I am never going to have fun again, because one of the scary things is that you forget how to have fun with drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, how am I going to enjoy myself and all this stuff? And then you turn that corner and you're like, wow, I can have fun in recovery. But the dependency for me was the worst part.
Yeah. Andy, what are you seeing on the street when you pull somebody over? People think, I believe, that if you have a medical marijuana card, you can do whatever you want at that point, and it's not true.
It's not true. You're exactly right.
And I don't think the public is educated about that.
Now, we have a lot of issues with this, and again, because it's an education piece on it. One is 12 years ago, the city of Philadelphia decriminalized marijuana. Yeah. So people don't realize where the city lines are, the county lines are, and it's sad because when they first did it, we were doing aggressive driving campaigns in Radnor through state funded grants and whatnot, and we would stop people, and they'd have the marijuana on or they'd be smoking it, and we're like, A, you can't do this. It's a misdemeanor still in the collar counties, and B, you can't be driving doing it. People think it's all right. Yeah. So that was one of the issues that first came about with it. Then we see the medical marijuana. Marijuana is still a Schedule I drug where it does under the DEA, it says it's not used for medical purposes, but the states now are doing this, and that's why there's the whole issue behind it with the financing, that you can't get financing from banks and whatnot because it's not approved at the federal level. So, but doctor writes the script, they go in, they get the medical marijuana, and they think it's all right, that I can use this because I've got a prescription. It's no different if you got a prescription for Percocet.
Exactly.
You can't get behind the wheel and drive the car if you're under the influence of it. And the thing with marijuana is if we stop people for DUI, and that's where we're seeing it, that's the uptick. The DUI by alcohol, again, continues to decrease, which is great. It's probably right now 7 or 8 to 1 for every 7 arrests we have for the DUI by marijuana. There's 1 or 2 for alcohol. So
Really?
it's come down, again, because of the education. But we have to continue with this education with respect to the marijuana. And there's different gradings in Pennsylvania when you're arrested for it. If it's your first offense DUI and your blood alcohol concentration is between a 0.08 and a 0.10, that's the lowest level for the sentencing. So essentially, you're going to go through alcohol education classes. Your license isn't suspended. You'll have an ignition interlock put on the car. So if you're driving, you have to provide the breath samples so you're not drinking. And there's some fines and whatnot. But it escalates. And marijuana, believe it or not, is at the highest level. So if it's a DUI by alcohol, it's your blood alcohol concentration is at a 0.16 or greater, which is high. It results in license suspensions. And that's the same penalty for marijuana because you don't need, as we just went over what the different rates are, the blood alcohol concentration rates for alcohol. It's not required for marijuana. Any amount in your system is a violation. Once it's tested and, we go through, the due process and the courts and the hearings. But if you're sentenced or you plead guilty to it, it's the highest level on the sentencing. So you're losing your license. It's, for at least a year. You're at a misdemeanor of the first degree, and it could actually be at a felony if there's other charges that are in there.
So you can't make the determination if somebody's high on the street, can you? The technology's not there yet, right?
Well, no, but we put them through. We have reasonable grounds to stop a vehicle if there's a motor vehicle violation. We stop, and then there's further investigation. If the officer walks up and they can smell marijuana, or there's
so what happens then?
So then what they do is they bring the individual out. They'll have a conversation with them, and they'll put them through the field sobriety test. No different than if it was somebody that was suspected to be under the influence of an alcoholic beverage. So they would come out and they go through the field sobriety test, and there's 3 tests. And they've been long tested and they work. So there's the one-leg stand, the walk and turn, and then the horizontal gaze and nystagmus, the HGN. So the officer puts them through those tests, and if they fail the test, then we have reasonable grounds and probable cause to believe they're under the influence of alcohol and or a controlled substance, and then they're taken for a blood test.
All right, so the difference is alcohol, somebody drank that night and they're still woozy and everything. Somebody used marijuana, and 10 days, 12 days later, it's still going to be positive in their system, right?
It can be, depending on the potency of the marijuana itself. But at that point, I don't think you're going to have a situation where they're driving or it's evident that they've had that. And again, we have to have reasonable grounds and then develop our probable cause to require somebody to submit to the blood test. So if it's 10 days out, the chances of the officer having any type of reasonable grounds or probable cause to do that probably does not exist at that point. It's immediate. And that's the problem with marijuana. The minute you start smoking it, it's into your system.
Right.
Where obviously, if you're consuming alcoholic beverages, it takes a little bit of time for your blood alcohol concentration to rise.
Right.
But the marijuana is almost immediate. Even with the medical marijuana, it's in your system.
Right. Yeah. People don't realize that. We have to take a break. Another break. We'll be back with Superintendent Andy Block. And our number again, 1-888-728-9941. Give a call.
This is Clean and Sober Radio.
A cancer diagnosis can knock the wind out of you. The Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center at Abington Jefferson Health can help. Our brand new Asplund Cancer Pavilion brings you 86,000 square feet of cancer-fighting science for truly comprehensive care. Backed by the strength of an NCI-designated cancer center. Call 1-800-JEFF now. The Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center at Abington Jefferson Health. The power to out-science cancer.
Hey, man, this is Ricky Bird, former member of Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, an inductee to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as of 2015, and I listen to Clean and Sober Radio, and so do my friends here, right?
888-728-9941. This is Clean and Sober Radio.
Welcome back, everybody, to Clean and Sober Radio. We were with the Chief of Police, Lower Merion Township, County, Montgomery County, outside of Philadelphia. Andy, do you like to be called Superintendent, Chief of Police, or Big Boss with the big hot sauce? I don't know. Is the chief the same as the superintendent?
Yeah, the chief is traditionally a civil service rank within organizations. So,
okay,
if you're outside of that civil service, they may call them the superintendent.
What do your police officers call you?
I tell them to call me Andy, but
Yeah.
some call me chief, some call me super, some call me superintendent. But it's and there's three superintendents in the region right here. There are actually four. There's here Upper Darby, Tim Bernhardt. We have Superintendent Chris Flanagan in Radnor, and then
Upper
Mike Beatty is in Tredyffrin. A good friend of mine. He's a superintendent as well.
And you are the what did I read here? You are the 12th police superintendent of Lower Merion. As far back as what, 1900?
Correct. That's when the police department was founded in August of 1900.
So if I just divide 1900.
Don't even try.
2025.
Don't even try.
So 25. So I'm not even going to try it.
That would be a Facebook thing. But I had a question for you, though. I was... in terms of we know alcohol is more impairing than marijuana, right? But could you tell us about, I actually saw like a Mythbusters thing that showed the impairment with marijuana, but can you tell us like what kind of risk, and do you see accidents when people are high off marijuana?
We do, and a lot of times it's in my opinion it's worse than the DUI by alcohol.
Really?
Simply because a lot of times if they're using, they're also selling it. And we've had situations where that, it's very dangerous, that they're going from one place to another, they're making the transactions and they're also using it. That's not a true, what we know in the business, true person that's dealing drugs, because a true drug dealer doesn't use the product.
Yeah.
Because it cuts in on their profit margins. But we've seen it, and that's the problem. Again, there's no control on the marijuana, not the medical marijuana, but, marijuana that you're purchasing. And it's more and more potent these days. You have different ways, to cultivate it. And people, the internet's here. You get on the internet and they're going to tell you how to do anything, as we all know. So, you had a lot of places that have hydroponic growing locations that we're not aware of it, because it's in a house. I've attended over the course of my career. I went to one drug class, and he said, "Listen, you're in the Northeast. It snows here a lot. If you've got a lot of snow and you're riding around, there's one house on the block that has no snow on the roof. Start taking a look at that house, because they might have a grow operation.
Wow!
Because they got to keep things warm and the lights on. I'm like,
clever.
Yeah, it is. So there's things that we look at, on that, but it's totally not controlled. Not that alcohol is. It's regulated by, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but, the people that are imbibing on it. And that's the other thing, if they're not at home, they're at an establishment, a bar where they're being served, it's incumbent in the responsibility of the bartender and the bar itself that if somebody's had too much to drink, to stop. That's the law, you can't serve people that are clearly intoxicated.
We talked about this on the break. There is a feeling that, marijuana is safer. It's better if the person's using marijuana than opioids or anything, or amphetamines. That's probably true. I mean, it's not as harmful, I guess, to your body. And do people rob banks and kill people when they smoke marijuana?
Yeah, it's absolutely true. As a drug and alcohol counselor, I would take any day of the week somebody hooked on marijuana and not opioids. One of the things that you see is everybody wants to find the safe drug, and a lot of times you get people on opioids that they get clean, and then they're like, well, I'm still going to smoke pot, and then somebody comes along with Percocet, and it triggers them.
Right. Sure.
But I would take it However, I got to tell you, I've been seeing worse with marijuana. You know, I've actually had a couple cases where people were stealing from their parents to get marijuana.
Sure.
I bet with the potency coming up, the dependencies are getting stronger.
Right.
So is it not a gateway drug anymore because it's so strong now? You don't really have to go to something.
Well, studies show that especially when people start early, marijuana primes the brain to enjoy cocaine. So
Right, and we all know that the first time if you're doing an opioid or God forbid it's heroin, they're never going to get that high again. It's the all-time high, and we say they're always chasing the dragon after that because they want to, and they never do, and that's the scary and the sad part about it in that situation. They'll do anything to get that because they want to achieve that first high they've ever had. And I've spoken to people, I had friends, that were addicted to it, and some are successful. They've recovered. And
Yeah.
it's beautiful. And I've lost friends too. And there's not one person, you can't tell me there's not one person that hasn't had a friend or a family member that has become addicted, to opioids.
Not
it
anymore.
affects all of us.
All of us.
And that's the thing, it's there. It's a sad situation. And, with your comments on the medical marijuana, all right, it's not as addictive, as the opioids are. So is that a way that the people that do have, legitimate pain and situations that they use that to ease the pain rather than getting addicted to the opioids? We've heard about it. I've seen it in my career, where, high school students, they're athletes, they're playing, they get hurt, there's a fracture, whatever it is, and they're prescribed to this, and they go down the wrong road, and some of it's fatal. It's sad. It's, it's preventable. And I've had discussions with physicians on it too, and I've been in my physician's office, and you see the drug reps come in, and they, they're pushing this, they're pushing that.
Are you seeing a older demographic when you're pulling people over who are now it's legal, medical, and they're smoking? Like you see people in their 70s. Hey, it's legal now. Let's start smoking marijuana.
See, that's the problem. In the 11th hour when they were approving the medical marijuana in Pennsylvania, nobody was smoking it, and that's the way you want it to be. It made it easier for us for the enforcement aspect of it, but then they put it in that there are times that it could be prescribed, because it's controlled. But you still can't do it. I haven't seen older people. We haven't seen that. Our median age right now, when we're dealing with the DUIs, runs anywhere from 20 to 40 to 45 years of age. That's where we're seeing it. And the xylene, we've seen that. We've had people that we've brought in that have been addicted to that, and they're they're coming down from it, and they're going through withdrawal, and it's scary, because. A number of different things happen to them, and it's different than what we have, with where we can give them the Narcan, to get them to recover quickly and then get them to the hospital. This stuff, can last a couple days just when they're withdrawing from it or they haven't had their hit.
So we're coming to the hour, Andy, and I think if anybody's going to take anything away from this hour, this is what I think it should be. If you have a medical marijuana card, you are still impaired when you're driving. And because you're still impaired, you can get into the legal system, and you don't want to get into the legal system.
Correct. That's you should talk to your physician, whoever is prescribing the medical marijuana, to have a frank and earnest discussion on what they can do and what they shouldn't be doing with it, because it does impair people.
Yeah,
it absolutely is, and we don't want anybody getting hurt. And nobody, I would hope that they're more than self-centered when they get behind the wheel of a car, and they're worried about themselves. We have to worry about everybody that's on the street, and,
exactly.
And we continue to see that, where some of the statistics are rising rather than going down with the enforcement.
Well, thanks for coming in. Thanks for your service.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Will you come back? Was this okay?
Absolutely.
Was this okay?
Oh, no, I enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And my hat's off to both of you guys, and while you're in recovery and you've done a marvelous thing and you've affected so many other lives, and you saved other lives. That's what we're here for.
We're all the three of us.
No, it's there, Every day is a gift. That's why they call it the present. Remember that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Me too.
Do you have any final words?
No, I just wish everybody, a very happy Passover and Easter. We're coming in into the high and holy holidays for the spring. And most importantly, everybody, please stay safe.
I just want to say one last thing. I hear such really good things about you.
Don't believe everything you hear.
Well, I don't. I only believe half of it, but it's still half as good. Hey, remember, if you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, help is available. Please call 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-HELP. For Clean and Sober Radio, I'm Gary Hendler.
I'm Mark Sigmund.
And thank you all for joining us. Thanks for all your support. And we hope you enjoyed the show.
I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the group and ourselves. I hope we pass the auditioning.
You know what that's from? The Beatles.
I was going to say.
You know? Hey, Tyler, thank you. Brad, thank you. Everybody have a great, safe, sober weekend. We'll catch you later.